Hello, everyone. This is John Garat speaking. I just created a YouTube channel, and if you can hit subscribe, that would help me out quite a bit. And I can get what we're going to be doing as we go along. This is the second installment of this series about club fitting, and today what we're going to talk about. Previously we talked about, of course, the aftermarket in a driver, as far as the driver goes. Here now we're talking about an iron fitting. Now, what is important about an iron fitting? Well, in an iron fitting, what is important is, probably about 3 or 4 things. Launch angle, very important, because you want to be able to launch it so you can hit it this maximum distance, so you can also hit it, relatively straight. Hit the green hopefully, which is always the goal when you have like I have a 7-iron in my hand here, and that's what you want. So launch angle, how much spin, backspin, of course. You also want to look at your shot dispersion. That is important. And also, I think attack angle. Those four metrics. You can go to your local golf retail store, and, they have a launch monitor. You can go in there and get those numbers, and it's going to tell you, if you're hitting it properly or if you need to make some adjustments. Okay. So I'm going to give you an example. If you're and there's ideals within each of these 4 categories that tells you that you're swinging it properly and if you need to make adjustments. For example, launch angle. For the average player, you want to be somewhere between 18 and 20 on a launch. I know with the 7-iron, and that's kind of what I'm talking about here when I got in my hand. On secondly, backspin, somewhere between 5 and 7,000, 5,500 to 7,000 is a good spin. That means that you're compressing the golf ball appropriately so that it's it's going to have some stopping power when it hits the green. Shot dispersion. If you're 10 to 15 yards off of your target, either left or right, you're probably going to hit the green. So it has to be tight. So you're not hitting it like 30 yards left or right, which is not good. Okay, the last one would be attack angle. Now, with an iron, you want to be hitting down, 5 to 6 degrees, or even maybe a little bit more than that, which is okay. But you also, want to make sure that, with an iron, you're hitting down on it, not up on it. That's the opposite of a driver, which is the opposite. You want to hit up on it. So you want to have, an adequate amount of downward, power, down into the golf ball, hitting down on it. Also, you got to keep in mind, geez, is my face open? Is my face closed? So the face angle, that's the other part that's really important. Because everything can be perfect, but if your face angle is open or closed, then you're going to have a problem. And you're going to be, the shot dispersion is going to be too wide. So, attack angle, face angle, you got to make sure that they're where they should be. And again, you can just go to your local golf shop and they get into a fitting bay. They can get you set up with the launch monitor, and it's going to give you all that information. But those are the kind of the things to look for in those categories to know if you're hitting it right. Now, let's say that you're not hitting it right. So let me kind of show you something called lie angle. At impact, the goal is this. The goal is where you're literally parallel with the ground. That's what we're looking for. But of course, most people's golf swings is not perfect. They're either toe down, which is probably 80 to 90% shots that I've ever seen. Usually, somebody with an iron is toe down, but it also can be toe up. Now, what's the difference in terms of ball flight with these two? When the club head is toe down at impact, it's going to open and it's going to go out to the right. Okay, and that's at impact. If at impact we have this, of course that's pointing left. So if your heel digs in, of course it's going to shut and it's going to go left. So if you're in a fitting, and you're one of those 2 scenarios, either up or toe down. But let's go down. Let's say you're toe down. If you're toe down at impact, how do you fix that? Well, instead of being, 2, 3, 4 degrees down, how do you get it so that we're here? Well, you make the club more upright by getting the toe up in the air. You get that toe up in the air, you not going to be doing this anymore. It's going to be, and that's where your more quality shots are going to come from, because you're doing this, not this, or you're just digging a trench in the ground because your toe is digging in too quickly. So this is what you want. This is our goal. And if you're toe down consistently at impact, make the club head more upright. Again, most golf shops, they have, you know, 2 flat to 2 upright heads that you can try and find out. But more than likely, if you're like this, go to an upright head, and that's going to straighten it out, and you're going to hit better, higher quality golf shots. So when it comes to iron fitting, is a little bit more complex than the driver. So this is something you want to pay attention to. What are you doing at impact? And if you are consistently doing it one way, if you're doing this at impact, make it upright. And that's gonna, boom, it's going to have you're gonna hit more quality shots, you're gonna shoot lower scores, and it's just gonna be much more enjoyable to play better than hitting these fat things to the right, which is what toe down's going to do. Okay, so that's, I think, probably the most critical element of iron fitting is that. What are we doing at impact? And that's with this, getting this correct at impact. That's what's going to, probably more than anything else, make you become a better iron player, by just making sure you're doing this and not this. Okay. Now, the second part of iron fitting is, of course, we're going to talk about the shaft. Okay. Now, like this one, for example, is a 95 gram stiff flex shaft. So how do you know what shaft is going to fit you? Well, that's because, again, you go into your local golf shop and you go and get a launch monitor reading. It's going to give you some, ball speed metrics that will determine really what flex you should have, number one. Number two, what weight shaft you should have. Okay, I'll give you an example. With the 7-iron, if your ball speed is about 110, let's say it's somewhere in that vicinity, or close to 110 mile an hour ball speed, you probably want somewhere around 100 gram shaft is going to be appropriate. Now, if you start getting up into 115 and 180, and get into there, then you want more of a 115 to 120 gram shaft. So the faster you are, the heavier the shaft usually you want to get. Because if you're hitting a 7-iron 175 yards and you got a 95 gram shaft, you're going to hit it way too high because it's too light for you. So you got to, guide yourself and to find out what your ball speed is. That's going to dictate what weight and flex of the shaft. And that 110 number is a good barometer to use to know what weight and flex shaft you need as well. So again, we've talked about the head, talked about the shaft, and of course, and also there's the grip. Again, on the grip side of things, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, if you're somebody that's got an extra large grip on your hand, extra large glove on your left hand, chances are you're going to need at least a mid-size, maybe even a jumbo. If you're somebody, if I was to grip the club like this, okay, and if I see these fingers digging into that pad, like so, and this one is not, so it fits me the way it's supposed to. But if you're doing this and your fingers are digging into this pad, then you need a bigger grip. And why is that important? That's important because it helps you to get control of that club face. Because if you have the wrong size grip, it's just going to be too easy to get that face angle off, either closed or open. And by having the right size grip for your hands, you're going to have a much easier time squaring that face up and having control of that club face at impact, and you're going to hit better shots by having the right size grip. So, we got the head, we got the shaft, we got the grip. So those are all of the things you need to put together and to get a really good iron fitting. In addition, one thing I forgot to mention as well is ball speed, of course. It's probably one of the most important things, in terms of the flex. To make sure that you're not using if you're hitting 175 yards with a 7-iron, you don't want to be using a regular flex shaft. You're going to hit it offline, particularly high and left. If it's too stiff for you, for example, if you're using an extra stiff and you're hitting a 7-iron 160, then of course tendency is going to be hitting it low to the right, and that's not a good fit. So you got to be right in that box is what I call it. If you fall into that box in terms of launch and the shot dispersion, and you're getting it into that box, and your launch monitor, the launch monitor is showing that you're doing that consistently on a consistent basis, then guess what? You've got something that fits you perfectly. And that's A to Z, kind of how an iron fitting should go. If you have any comments, please just hit the subscribe button below. And again, in the next video, we're probably going to go talk about wedges and about wedge fittings and how that works. But until next time, thank you. Bye-bye.